Daisy Gaston Bates and the Little Rock Nine received national attention in 1957 when an attempt was made to place 9 black children in the all-white Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. In a 2-year struggle, she was considered the moving force behind the Little Rock's integration efforts. Daisy Gaston Bates was an American civil rights activist, a publisher, a journalist, and a lecturer who played a leading role in the integration of an all-white Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957. There is much debate and confusion regarding her exact date of birth. Some records indicate she was born on November 11th, 1914, while others support November 11th, 1922 as her date of birth. That is a discrepancy of 8 years, and at this point, no one seems to know for sure. We do know that she was born in a small town of Hutton, Arkansas, and died November the 4th, 1999 in Little Rock, Arkansas. Daisy never knew her natural mother because when she was just a baby, her mother was taken from her one afternoon by 3 white men who were apparently a part of a violent mob attack. Her body was found the very next day in a local pond. She had been raped and murdered. This all proved to be too much for Daisy's father, who placed her in the care of some friends, Mr. and Mrs. Orleans Gaston. The Gastons later legally adopted her. This was Daisy's first experience with the brutalities of racism, but it was not her last. During her childhood, Daisy had faced many instances of racial injustice, which made her very angry. Her anger was so great that her adopted father's dying words to her were, "If you're going to hate, then make it count for something." Hate the segregation in the South, and so she did make it count. She turned her anger into action. After Daisy graduated from high school, she attended Philander Smith College and Shorter College, both in Little Rock, Arkansas. In 1941, Daisy married L.C. Bates, a journalist, and together they started a weekly newspaper, the Arkansas State Press. They then launched an all-out campaign against all forms of injustices perpetrated against blacks. In the early months of the newspaper, circulation reached 10,000, and the Bates became a strong force in championing the rights of blacks. Daisy was then elected president of the Arkansas NAACP. This is when she took her father's word to heart and actively fought for the desegregation of public schools. In 1942, Daisy covered a story involving cold-blooded murder of a black soldier by a city police officer. She reported the killing was one of the most brutal murders in the annals of Little Rock. She told how the officers threw the soldier to the ground, then pumped 5 bullets into his body. A few days later, she ran the story. They lost a substantial amount of advertising from white stores. The future of the paper seemed grim, but the base began working 18 hours a day. And once again, circulation rose, reaching 20,000. They expanded their efforts to include better housing conditions, jobs, and courtroom representations for blacks. When the famous Brown versus Board of Education case in 1954 in Topeka, Kansas, resulted in a Supreme Court decision that the segregation in the public schools was unconstitutional, Daisy Bates took the national spotlight as a promoter in desegregating Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. Integration in many Arkansas schools was carried out without incidents or violence until Orville Forbes became the governor in 1955. In 1957, African American children were not allowed to attend the same as white children in Little Rock, Arkansas. 17 black students were selected for enrollment by Daisy Bates and the NAACP and were screened by the school board. However, 8 of the 17 who were selected withdrew out of fear. But despite threats to their lives, Daisy and the remaining 9 black students set out to integrate Central High School. This upset many white people, including Governor Orville Favors, who sent the National Guardsmen to bar their entrance into the school. The students faced the angry, hateful mobs and the bayonets of the Guardsmen. The rest of the country was deeply shocked when the scenes were shown on television. The children were not allowed to enter the school until President Dwight Eisenhower sent the 101st Airborne Division to escort and protect Daisy Bates and the students as they marched past the angry mobs and successfully integrated Central High School. The 9 students faced intense, brutal, and hateful racist backlash. The Bates home, which had become an informal meeting place and sanctuary, was a place for students to recuperate and regroup, became a target of angry whites. Rocks was thrown through her windows and crosses were burned on her lawn. After the loss of thousands of dollars in advertising revenue, the Arkansas State Press was forced out of operation. Nightly, her home had to be protected by armed guards. For their courage and perseverance, Daisy and the Little Rock Nine were awarded the NAACP Spingarn Medal. After the Little Rock incident, Daisy continued her fight for equal rights. She spoke at the Civil Rights March on Washington in 1963, pledging to stop fighting only when Black Americans could sit, walk, kneel, and study in any public place in the country. In recognition of her outstanding efforts, she received awards, citations, and honorary degrees from more than 40 organizations. In 1990, Daisy was awarded the Arkansas Citizen of the Year Award for her achievements. She was awarded the Woman of the Year Award twice, Outstanding Citizen of the Year for 1957. She was named one of the top 9 news personalities of the world in 1957, and she was listed in Who's Who in American Women. In 1962, Daisy Bates wrote her autobiography, The Long Shadow of Little Rock, a memoir detailing her memories of the fight of desegregation. On May the 8th, 2024, the Daisy Lee Gatson Bates statue was unveiled in the Statuary Hall in Washington, D.C. The governor of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, delivered remarks at that ceremony that day. Her remarks were very praiseworthy and complimentary, and Daisy Bates of her many remarkable brave works and contributions in the fight for civil rights and equal rights for blacks, especially for the segregation of schools in Arkansas. Today, let us remember Daisy Bates, for how she fought for our civil and equal rights, especially for how she fought to desegregate Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. Thank you.